Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for my continued followers, I want to say thank you. We haven't talked about anything up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and so I found a good one that's interesting and shocking between a police officer and a homeless man. But part of the caveat to this one is there's no interracial dynamic. There's not a white cop and a black homeless man. This is a black cop and a black homeless man, and how these dynamics took place leading to this homeless man's death. And so here it goes. Newly released police footage shows Pittsburgh officer shocks homeless man 10 times before he dies at a hospital, and the cop is trying to get his job back. The attorneys for the family of a homeless man who died after being stunned with a taser 10 times by Pittsburgh police officer recently released official police footage showing the whole entire encounter. The death of Jim Rogers sparked widespread outrage in the city of Pittsburgh due to the brutal nature of the encounter between him and former officer Keith Edmonds, who was investigating a bicycle theft on October 13th, 2021, when he came across Rogers. This was all over a bicycle. Not a motorcycle, not a car, not a person. The 52-minute video that Rogers' family's attorneys reveal in the footage, police dashboard and cell phone video coverage shows that the footage begins with Edmonds' body cam video. Edmonds is seen approaching 54-year-old Rogers, who's the homeless guy, in a residential neighborhood after seeing that Rogers' profile matched some parts of the suspect description he received from dispatchers. So Edmonds is a police officer, Rogers is the homeless guy. He immediately confronts an unarmed Rogers, the homeless gentleman, about the bike theft. And after asking him a few questions, he frisked Rogers for officer safety. After Edmonds searched Rogers' pockets and takes out a wallet, Roger takes hold of the wallet, and Edmonds immediately forces him face down to the ground. So Edmonds, the police officer, takes his wallet. Roger takes his wallet back, and then that's when they had a scuffle to the ground. Edmonds takes a taser from his holster and presses it to Roger's back, threatening to use it on him if he doesn't show his hands and put them behind his back. Rogers isn't resisting Officer Edmonds, but Officer Edmonds fires off one shot when Rogers doesn't comply with his orders. Rogers apologizes and says he's not doing anything. Officer Edmonds, even as Officer Edmonds shocks him with a taser, yelling at Rogers to put his hands behind his back. Moments later, Edmonds releases his hold on Rogers. And before Edmonds stuns him again, shouting the same order, the rest of the video shows Rogers continually trying to flee in distress while Edmonds continues to tase him. The video shows Rogers breathing heavily after taking multiple shocks and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not dangerous," several times during the encounter. A neighbor even yelled at Officer Edmonds, "Would you give him a minute to collect himself? How is he supposed to do anything when you keep zapping him like that?" At one point, Rogers was lying in the middle of the street after taking several shocks as Officer Edmonds hovered over him with his taser still pointed. Officer Edmonds orders him to get on the ground, even though Rogers is already on the ground. And then Officer Edmonds tases him again. A few minutes later, police backup arrived at the scene and multiple officers take Rogers into custody. Rogers was shocked or tased 10 times by Officer Edmonds before more officers arrived. No one gave him medical attention at the scene, even though he appeared to be visibly distressed. Neighbors also heard yelling in protest at police about their treatment of Rogers. So other people are even seeing this. This is a homeless gentleman over a bicycle. The footage switches to a video recorded from inside the squad car showing Rogers is in the back seat breathing heavily, banging his head against the back of his seat, mumbling incoherently and screaming in agitation. Because when you get tased, depending on what people's medical conditions and mental conditions, it can send you into respiratory distress, delusions. That tasing thing is no joke. It took nearly 20 minutes for police to drive Rogers to the hospital. Officers stopped at traffic lights and chose not to turn on their emergency lights. Man, they didn't turn on their emergency lights or anything. They stopped. By the time they arrived, Rogers was unresponsive. I told you, you get tased, you can have respiratory failure, distress, and even it can send you into cardiac arrest. He died the next day at the hospital. Rogers. A medical examiner stated Rogers died to acute brain and ruled his death as accidental. Acute brain distress and respiratory distress, and ruled his death as accidental. Pittsburgh police ultimately fired Officer Edmonds from the force and 3 other officers for excessive force, violating police procedure, and failing to get Rogers immediate medical assistance. 3 of those officers were reinstated last year. Remember, this happened a couple years ago, but now they're trying to get their jobs back. Edmonds is also fighting to get his job back through a police union arbitration process. No one was criminally charged for Rogers' death. None of the police officers. They got fired and they got their jobs back, except for Edmonds. Rogers' family was awarded a historic $8 million settlement last year after filing a wrongful death lawsuit. Family attorneys said the police footage they just released was sealed during litigation, but a federal judge signed off on a court order permitting them to make it public. So the police did not want that coverage to come out. The Rogers family unfortunately lost their family member, and they did get awarded an $8 million settlement. There were 3 other police officers involved in it. They all got fired, got their jobs back, so they just waited a little bit of time. And then this Edmonds, this guy who precipitated this entire event over a bicycle, gets fired, waits a year or 2, and now, right now, the reason I'm doing this case, even though this video, it was a couple years ago, he's trying to get his job back now after tasing a homeless man 10 times over a bicycle that he did not even steal. This took place on October 13th of 2021, and now they just got their verdict and their award for their lawsuit. And now this guy, Jim Rogers, is the one who died, and then this police officer, Keith Edmonds, this police officer, Keith Edmonds, is trying to get his job back. I don't think he should have his job back. If he's going to be this aggressive and this forceful with a homeless gentleman, what else has he done or will he do? We got to get these bad apples out of the police force. This homeless man who was already half down on his luck ended up in the hands of Keith Edmonds and ended up dying, being tased over 10 times over a bike, and he was no threat. I don't think Officer Edmonds needs his job back. We need better policing. We need police for public safety. But let's get these bad apples out of here. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth, and I'll see you next time.